Ladies and gentlemen, recently, Chinese President Xi Jinping made a statement that went viral on Chinese social media, causing many netizens to ponder deeply and feel not fear but happiness. Xi Jinping's words echoed those of Emperor Puyi's father when the emperor ascended the throne. Interestingly, this statement came true 3 years later. On May 20, 2024, the day the new Taiwanese president Lai Ching-te was sworn in, the political news section of CCTV, China Central Television, published an article titled, "Yinxu is a place I have wanted to go to for a long time." This phrase was a quote from Xi Jinping. Commentators suggested that CCTV's use of this phrase as a title seemed to be a prophecy for China and leader Xi Jinping, implying that the saying was very ominous. It brings bad luck to the Red Dynasty. So what is Yinxu? Why did Xi say this? Let's find out in today's video. Yinxu is the site of the capital of the late Shang dynasty, located in Anyang City, Henan, China, dating back to the 14th century BC. By the 12th century BC, during the reign of the last emperor of the Shang dynasty, King Zhou, Yinxu remained the capital. Thus, the Shang dynasty was also called Yinshang or the Yin dynasty. After King Wu of Zhou defeated King Zhou of Shang and destroyed the Shang dynasty, a large number of Shang people migrated out of the Yin capital. As a result, the Yinshang capital gradually became deserted, leading to its name Yinxu, which means the abandoned capital of the Yin dynasty. This signifies that King Zhou of Shang, Zhao Wang, was immoral, and King Wu followed the will of heaven to defeat King Zhou and destroy the Shang dynasty. From then on, the Yinshang dynasty disappeared from history, and the capital of the Yin dynasty became Yinxu, a symbol of tyranny being destroyed by divine intervention. On October 28, 2022, Xi Jinping visited the Anyang Yinxu Museum. While viewing the excavated artifacts, he said, "The Yinxu Museum is a place I have long wanted to visit. This time I came here to learn more about ancient Chinese culture to apply it to today, and set an example for building the modern culture of the Chinese nation." Xi Jinping also mentioned that Jiaguan excavated at the site has preserved 3,000-year-old writing, enabling us to advance China's historical narrative by about 1,000 years. From Xi Jinping's words and actions during this inspection trip, it is evident that this is the first time a national leader has inspected the museum. Xi Jinping said these words to express to the public that he highly values history and cherishes Chinese civilization. If Xi Jinping had said, "The Yinshang civilization is something I have long wanted to learn about," then this would have clearly conveyed his intended message. However, he said, "The Yinxu civilization is a place I have long wanted to go to," which carries a negative connotation because the Shang civilization symbolizes the overthrow of tyrants and tyranny. Isn't saying the Shang civilization is a place I have long wanted to go to a very bad omen? This statement likely came out without much thought. If it is indeed significant, it could become a prophecy in Chinese history. In special historical contexts, seemingly ordinary words spoken by individuals in significant roles can turn into prophecies. There are many anecdotes of this nature. No need to delve into the distant past, just look at the last emperor in Chinese history for a clear example. The last emperor of the Qing dynasty, Puyi, in his autobiography, The First Half of My Life, recounted the following story. 3 days after I entered the palace, CX had passed away for more than a month. That was December 2, the day of the grand coronation ceremony. Later, I heard people say that the grand ceremony was disrupted by my crying. The grand ceremony was held in the Taiyi Palace, and the so-called coronation ceremony involved my father and aunt sitting on the throne and receiving congratulatory greetings from the princes, civil and military officials. Before the grand ceremony, according to the etiquette, I had to receive a ceremony from the high officials in charge of the guards at the Zhonghe Palace. I had been tormented by them for half a day. Moreover, the weather was very cold that day. Therefore, when they carried me to the Taiyi Palace and placed me on the high and large throne, it exceeded my limit of tolerance. So I cried loudly. My father leaned over and knelt on one knee under the throne, supporting me with both hands, not allowing me to act chaotically. I struggled and cried even louder, shouting, "I don't want to be here. I want to go home." My father was nervous, sweat pouring down his face. The civil and military officials performed the 3 kneeling and 9 kowtow ceremony, kowtowing repeatedly. My crying became louder and louder. My father had no choice but to comfort me, saying, "Don't cry anymore. Don't cry anymore. It's almost over. It's almost over." After the grand ceremony ended, the civil and military officials whispered among themselves, "Your Highness, why did you say it's almost over? What does the emperor mean when he says he wants to go home?" Everyone was discussing and gossiping, bowing their heads in gloom, as if they had all discovered an ominous sign. Let's review the history of that time to understand why the civil and military officials were so worried and speculative. The Qinggong, which records major events and the year I ascended the throne, was compiled during the Republic of China period, using historical documents mainly from the Qing dynasty government archives. From those archives, we see many words such as defeat and retreat. The more frequent these words are, the more intense the storm appears. These were the worries of the princes and officials at the grand coronation ceremony. During the Xi'an dynasty, the situation became even clearer. Then Yuan Shikai was involved, causing further concern. People thought there was a revolutionary party outside and Yuan Shikai inside. Ominous signs in history all appeared during the Xi'an dynasty. In the 3rd year, I became emperor without realizing it and abdicated in a daze. The last emperor's father was Prince Chun. When the little emperor ascended the throne, to coax him into not causing trouble, he blurted out, "It's almost done, it's almost done." This became a prophecy. 3 years after Puyi ascended the throne, in 1912, the Qing dynasty completely ended. Is Xi Jinping's unintentional remark, "Yinxu is a place I have long wanted to go to," a prophecy similar to that of Prince Chun? Chinese netizens on Twitter are buzzing about this. What about you? What do you think about it? China's PMI hit a 5-month low in July, and pessimism in the manufacturing industry is strong. China's economy continues to be sluggish. The latest official data shows that the Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index, PMI, in July was 49.4, a 5-month low and the 3rd consecutive month of contraction. Some analysts pointed out that the data indicates that China's manufacturing industry is full of pessimism. The National Bureau of Statistics of the Communist Party of China released the latest data on July 31. The PMI in July was 49.4, down 0.1 percentage points from June, hitting a 5-month low. This is also the 3rd consecutive month that the PMI has been below the boom-bust line of 50, falling into the contraction range. Compared to the figures announced by the CCP, many experts believe that the actual number is much lower. The Non-Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index, NMI, fell from 50.5 in June to 50.2, which was lower than expected. Both PMI and NMI use 50% as the boom-bust line. An index above 50% represents economic expansion, an index below 50% represents economic contraction. Reuters analysis pointed out that the latest data showed that China's domestic demand continued to be sluggish. Geopolitical pressure brought additional stress, and pessimism in China's manufacturing activities was strong. From the perspective of enterprise size, China's large enterprise PMI was 50.5%, up 0.4 percentage points from the previous month. The PMIs of medium and small enterprises were 49.4% and 46.7%. Down 0.4 and 0.7 percentage points from the previous month. This means that the investment confidence of small and medium-sized enterprises is still insufficient. Wang Qing, chief macro analyst of Orient Securities, told the mainland media, Daily Economic News, that the decline in the New Order Index of the manufacturing PMI in July was mainly due to the adjustment of the real estate industry, which suppressed the demand for building materials such as steel and cement. More importantly, The sluggish property market has created a wealth shrinking effect, and residents' consumer confidence has also been affected to a certain extent. Real estate was once one of the pillars of China's economy. 70% of Chinese households' wealth was invested in real estate, but in the past 2 years, the real estate industry has continued to be weak, and house prices have fallen, impacting China's economy. Reuters analysis pointed out that sub-indexes such as new export orders and factory prices show that Chinese factory owners are trying to cut prices to boost shipments. The Political Bureau of the CPC Central Committee held a meeting on July 30 and reiterated the need to boost consumption and expand domestic demand. Wang Gao, chief China economist at UBS Securities, told Reuters that the Chinese government is expected to further reduce commercial bank reserves and borrowing costs, but there will be no new major stimulus measures. Recently, China's 6 major state-owned banks collectively lowered deposit rates, including Industrial and Commercial Bank of China, Agricultural Bank of China, China Construction Bank, Bank of Communications, and Postal Savings Bank. After the reduction, the listed interest rates of the 6 major banks' time deposits bid farewell to the 2 prefix and entered the 1 era. The listed interest rates of the 6 major banks' current deposits were lowered to 0.15%, and the 1-year, 2-year, 3-year, and 5-year time deposit rates were lowered to 1.35%, 1.45%, 1.75%, and 1.8% respectively. Subsequently, joint stock banks quickly followed suit, and China Merchants Bank and Ping An Bank have both lowered their deposit rates. China's alarming Tofu-dreg construction. Building speed is terrible.
Under the CCP's regime, substandard construction practices, known as tofu-dreg, are widespread in China. This term describes buildings constructed with poor workmanship, resulting in low quality or even total structural failure. Online footage captured a piece of marble falling from a building in Tianjin. Fortunately, there were no injuries. In the Chinese real estate market, most houses, particularly those built after 2015, are of poor quality. Many citizens have paid exorbitant prices for substandard homes. The notion of these houses lasting 70 years is almost laughable. It would be astonishing if they endured that long. In reality, significant renovations will likely be necessary after just 30 years, and some issues may be irreparable. This grim outlook is well-founded. China's infrastructure, in general, suffers from poor quality. A devastating house collapse in Yinxu resulted in the tragic deaths of 4 people, with some desperately fleeing as the structure crumbled. In Zhanghai District, Jiangmen, Guangdong, a house near a bustling market also collapsed, adding to the region's alarming trend of structural failures. In Tianjin, a gas explosion led to the collapse of a building within a community. The extent of the destruction from a single gas explosion raises serious concerns about the construction quality and safety of these homes. Since the turn of the millennium, the skyrocketing real estate prices have turned the market into a hotbed for exorbitant profits. Unfortunately, the lengthy construction timelines of 2 to 3 years have magnified the industry's flaws, making it challenging to maintain quality control in the rush to attract buyers. Eager property owners, lured by the promise of quick deeds, often compromise on standards and end up with subpar units. As prices soared to unprecedented heights, developers began prioritizing profit margins over construction standards. Exploiting market dynamics, these profit-driven entities deliberately ignored defects, confident that flaws would go unnoticed during resales. This unscrupulous approach left unsuspecting buyers at the mercy of developers who knew that dissatisfied customers had little leverage, especially when issues seemed minor. The real estate landscape thus became rife with compromised integrity, with buyers navigating a perilous terrain where their concerns were systematically disregarded. In China, collapsing buildings are unfortunately not uncommon. For instance, the slow protection of Yinxu community in Sichuan collapsed, causing severe damage to the building. The quality of China's buildings and infrastructure is so poor that even rain can lead to collapses, highlighting the dire state of construction standards in the country. On May 27, 2024, one unit of a building in a neighborhood in Anhui province collapsed, killing at least 4 people. One Nissan stated, "The quality of the building won't last long enough to finish the mortgage." Another lamented, "This one collapsed today, and the other will collapse tomorrow. I've spent nearly all of my life savings to buy a home under the CCP's rule. People spend so much money on homes, but the quality is so poor." Dramatic online footage reveals the collapse of a building in Anhui province, where the top floor balcony of a house suddenly crumbled, releasing a cloud of smoke. This incident occurred on the evening of June 11, 2024, following a heavy downpour. The exterior wall of a 30-story building fell off, damaging vehicles parked on the street below. The fact that only rain caused such damage raises serious concerns about the building's construction quality. On May 29, 2024, a user commented on X, describing these incidents as Tofu-dreg projects, terms used for corruption-driven constructions under criminal syndicates, which are premeditated and executed without fear of repercussions. Nissan posted a video showing a man on a rooftop, capturing the moment when the external wall of a building detached, clearly showcasing the poor construction quality. Back in February 2021, a neighborhood under construction in Beijing faced similar issues, including leaking roofs and cracked walls. The cement on the walls was so weak that it could be crushed by hand. A video showed a resident, suspecting poor quality, using a tool resembling a screwdriver to dig through the roof. Shockingly, it turned out there was no cement, only dirt. These incidents highlight the rampant issues of substandard construction practices and corruption, raising alarms about the safety and durability of buildings in China. A citizen recorded an incident where a building's surface was blown off by the wind and crashed directly onto the sidewalk. On November 23, 2023, a residential building in Anhui province suddenly lost its exterior wall. The veneer fell to the ground, causing pedestrians to scream in fear. The local neighborhood committee casually stated that the property management company had been informed. On the afternoon of April 27, 2024, another residential building developed a large crack from top to bottom, causing one side to tilt. Witnesses reported that the crack started at 10 cm and quickly expanded to a meter, accompanied by a strong smell of gas. The footage reveals the sound of the building cracking and pieces of the staircase falling. People screamed in terror, with one person asking, "Is it collapsing?" The scene was chaotic, and someone urgently shouted, "Get out!" The following day, the local government issued a report on the incident, confirming that the building was cracked and tilted. They described the entire structure as dangerously tilted but mentioned that residents had been evacuated and resettled more than half a year ago, in August 2022. The cracked building was vacant and slated for demolition. Mainland Chinese media personality, Teacher Wang Daily, questioned why the building wasn't reinforced or demolished earlier, given its known danger. "Leaving it standing is like leaving a ticking bomb," he argued. Even though the building is empty, adjacent buildings are still occupied, putting other residents at risk. The cracks are rapidly growing, indicating that the building continues to tilt. If it collapses, the consequences will be dire. Due to ongoing complaints from the building's owners about its poor quality, local officials decided to inspect the situation. However, during their visit, they found themselves trapped in the elevator, sparking fear and embarrassment. Residents exclaimed, "Heaven knows," as the officials were stranded. Homeowners on site sarcastically asked, "Are you scared?" The elevator stopped. "Can you get out?" Others added, "Don't move." Some even suggested, "Maybe there's nothing wrong with it, it's fine." One remarked, "Thank goodness the divine is looking after us," implying the officials finally experienced the building's notorious problems firsthand. In another alarming video, homeowners tested the quality of their new homes. One person easily removed 2 door frames by hand, revealing they were made of styrofoam. A woman commented that the frames weren't as sturdy as Lego. Towards the end of the video, a man stomped on the floor, causing it to shift. The question arose, who would dare to live in such a place? How long can such substandard buildings last? The prevalence of tofu-dreg construction in China is both widespread and deeply concerning. Over a decade ago, the Xi'an earthquake brought this issue to light. On May 12, 2008, at 2:28 p.m., a devastating 8.2 magnitude earthquake struck Xi'an County in Xi'an province. According to China's Ministry of Civil Affairs, 69,420 people lost their lives. However, the Bashu Alliance, a Chinese civil organization, estimated the actual death toll to be around 300,000, including over 30,000 students, many of whom were young children in kindergarten. The local school buildings were suspected to be Tofu-dreg projects. Despite Premier Mr. W.G. Ba's demand for a thorough investigation into these substandard constructions, no significant action has been taken. Let's revisit the tragic events of the earthquake. Footage shows students frantically running down the stairs, attempting to escape, as the school building collapsed in an instant. The devastation was immediate and heartbreaking. At the time, mainland Chinese media reported that the cement in the rubble was so loose that people could break the pre-made concrete slabs into any shape, almost like cookies. The rebar was equally weak, with some slabs containing only 3 tiny bars that could be broken with minimal force. On May 12, 2024, more than 100 parents who had lost their children in the earthquake went to the site to mourn, but local police blocked their entry. The CCP authorities have continually denied responsibility for the Tofu-dreg construction linked to the disaster. No cemetery has been established for the children who perished, and for years, parents have been prevented from visiting the site to mourn. One parent mentioned that after the earthquake, the CCP encouraged bereaved parents to have another child, promising to cover the education and medical expenses for the second child, as well as the parents' medical expenses. 16 years later, these promises remain unfulfilled. The real-life footage of the WN earthquake is deeply shocking, and the collapse of Tofu-dreg buildings across China is alarming. On June 8, 2024, a user on X platform posted a screenshot of a conversation between a professional and a friend about the issue of China's Tofu-dreg buildings. The friend asked, "Why do Chinese homes have a property right of 70 years, but an actual service life of less than 50 years?" The professional explained that cement takes at least 28 days to reach 80% strength. However, in China, floors are built in just 7 days, disturbing the cement before it sets and creating tiny cracks. This weakens the bond between the cement and the reinforcement, making it difficult to check because the flaws are internal. The normal construction process should allow 15 days for drying and 28 days after pouring the concrete, meaning it takes 43 days to build a floor. Consequently, constructing a 30-story building should take at least 48 to 60 months, or about 4 to 5 years. However, in reality, buildings in China are often completed in less than 2 years, leading to what are known as rotten-tailed buildings. Expecting these buildings to last 70 to 100 years is unrealistic and highlights the severe construction issues in China. These revelations underscore the catastrophic potential of poor construction practices in China, suggesting that in 50 years, high-rise ruins could litter the landscape. This commentary, posted in Radio Free Asia under the title China Specialty: The Endless Tofu-dreg Projects, delves into the shady secrets and interests behind these projects. Blogger Le Changpeng noted that asking for the truth is futile because everyone already knows it. The government's bizarre lies cover up the reality, much like with the Tofu-dreg school buildings in the WN earthquake. Every new project births billionaires, while completed projects leave a trail of exploited workers. The era's legacy is not truth, but the creative ways the truth is concealed. The dire consequences of poor construction in China are beyond alarming. In 50 years, the country could be littered with the ruins of high-rise buildings. This thought alone is chilling. A commentary in Radio Free Asia, titled China Specialty: The Endless Tofu-dreg Projects, questions how many shady secrets and interests are hidden in these Tofu-dreg projects. Blogger Le Changpeng insightfully noted, "Everyone knows the truth, but the more you know, the more the government will bury it under bizarre lies." Just like with the Tofu-dreg school buildings and the Xi'an earthquake, the truth and the lives of thousands of children are forever buried in the rubble, he went on to say. Every new project births more billionaires, and every completed project leaves behind a legacy of exploited workers. The era's greatest legacy isn't the truth, but the creativity in hiding it. They tell the lies, and the people turn them into folklore. Chinese commentator Yan Dan added, "The Chinese Communist government has always targeted democratic systems, restricted freedom, and tarnished traditional values. Their claims of putting people first are hollow. They only seek power and profit." CCP officials, driven by greed, exploit national tragedies without hesitation. China's justice system, overseen by the executive authorities, shields minor officials with the protection of their superiors, making them unaccountable to the people. With power backing them, they exploit citizens without remorse. Many believe jerry-building is why state projects have degraded into tofu-dregs. In ancient China, despite corrupt officials, the imperial family and government left behind grand architecture that lasted centuries. In stark contrast, the CCP's reign has spawned unparalleled corruption, fostering a culture where poor construction like tofu-dreg projects flourishes. These insights paint a stark picture of the systemic corruption and its catastrophic impact on construction quality in China.